Hey, it's your friend CJ here, and I'm coming to you guys with the final week of the rounds of pool play for the GOT, the Grand Overseas Tournament. And we are going up against our Week 1 opponent, Volume, coach of the Arizona Dactyls. When we played the last time, we were able to eke out a 3-0 victory, or 4-0 victory. I think it was a 3-0 victory. We were able to set up with the Double Dance Thunderous and sweep through his team, which was really nice. The matchup, I think, is definitely in his favor. He has two really potent ground types, being Landorus and Zygarde, and my only resist is Thunderous. That makes the Zygarde particularly threatening because a Banded 1,000 Arrows does like 75% to Thunderous, so it kills after rocks if he manages to get them up. Just in case you guys don't know what his team is, I'll go ahead and I will read it off to you. It is Tapu Koko, Landorus T, Mega Scizor, Greninja, Gengar, Zygarde, Cresselia, and Conkeldurr. And so, as you can see, I've brought Thunderous again. This is the very similar set, Double Dance Thunderous. I'm running Shardy Berry instead of a Magnet this time, just because I might be able to take advantage of like a Landorus or something like that. If he wants to try and revenge like a nasty plot boosted Thunderous with his Landorus, I can click Agility and tank the Stone Edge very easily, get up to +2 speed, and pretty much sweep through his team. Assuming I've got prior damage on things like Scizor, Tapu Koko, and also Conkeldurr. So similar set to last time, just new item. I've got a Shuka Berry, Nidoqueen, same attacks as last time, which was Earth Power, Flamethrower, Ice Beam, and Stealth Rock. I went with Shuka Berry just because I'm still really weak to the ground types, and I took off the red card from last time for the Fortress. And yeah, so that's going to be a very important Pokemon to check his Tapu Koko. It also checks Scizor pretty well. I had Rocky Helmet last time to check Scizor a little bit better. Get off some chip damage when he goes for U-turn and things like that, but I do not have that anymore. I have an Assault Vest and Empoleon, similar to what I brought before, but instead of bringing Spadef leftovers, I'm bringing Assault Vest with a Bold Nature. I have HP Fire, Scald, Ice Beam, and Grass Knot. This is still the best check that I have to things like Greninja and Gengar. Those things are huge threats to my team. But I wanted to have a little bit of a defensive investment, so I could take on things like Scizor just a little bit better if I needed. And it also helps me tank a low kick from a Greninja a little bit better if he chooses to run mixed, which would be the best way for him to beat my Empoleon, which is what I switched in versus him every time last game. I have a Babiri Berry Kyurem. This is here to lure in the Scizor. It's got HP Fire, Fusion Bolt, Ice Beam, and Toxic. And yeah, the Kyurem is, his best switch into that is definitely Scizor. And if I can get rid of the Scizor, or at least weaken it, that'll help pave the way for my next Pokemon, which is Scolipede. It's a Life Orb Sword Stance set with Poison Jab, Mega Horn, and Aqua Tail. It doesn't really have a great matchup on paper, but mostly because of the Scizor. But I think if we could whittle that thing and then weaken some of the other Pokemon on his team, Scolipede should be able to clean up, because it can hit all of his Pokemon for a lot of damage. Then last but not least, we have a Fizdef Fortress with Volt Switch, Spikes, Gyro Ball, and Hidden Power Ice. We had counter on this before, but Hidden Power Ice just seemed better to hit both the Lando and the Zygarde. And then Gyro Ball hits things like Gengar pretty hard, hits Tapu Koko pretty hard, and then Spikes is just nice. As you can see, it whittles a lot of his team, especially the Scizor and the Conkeldurr. Those are the main things I really want chip on, because they're hard for me to kill. So I left Pyukumuku on my bench. I wanted to bring Pyukumuku because with Unaware I can check things like Swords Dance Landorus and Dragon Dance Zygarde really easily. But if he brings Substitute, then I'm kind of shit out of luck. So that's why I left Pyukumuku on the bench. And then I had Mega Sableye in here. Mega Sableye does really well versus his team. It nearly, it got set up really well last game, then got revenge killed by a Banded Outrage from Zygarde. But it could have potentially won. It 1v1'd Tapu Koko, which is his best counter to Sableye, so that was excellent. I decided to take that out for the Scolipede. But the only problem with that is now I'm looking at his team and I have nothing that can really switch into Conkeldurr. Conkeldurr is a really big issue in this matchup. The other thing that I really missed about having Sableye was the access to Will-O-Wisp. So I can't get off of Prankster Will-O-Wisp on his ground types. That's another reason I decided to go Shukaberry on the Nidoqueen, just to help compensate for that. And then Empoleon obviously isn't taking any ground type moves, but if we let Zygarde lock itself into something like Outrage, we can come in and then revenge kill it with Ice Beam and not take too much damage because we are pretty physically defensive. So the last time we played, he led off with Landorus. I don't know like what he wanted to lead off with this time exactly. He could have led off with Lando again, but I thought there was a decent chance he led off with Koko. So I decided to lead off with my Nidoqueen, and we're going to hop right onto this battle, and I will show you guys exactly what we're doing here. So he does lead with a Koko, so great lead for me. I am just going to go ahead and go for my Stealth Rocks here. I guess he switched out fearing me to maybe be Scarfed, which is, you know, pretty reasonable. Nidoqueen with a Scarf is actually pretty nice. And this Conkeldurr comes in here, goes for Rock Slide. So from this damage, I know that he is almost no attack investment with probably Guts as his ability, probably not Sheer Force, because I would have done a little bit more damage to my Fortress. So yeah, Fortress, it can take a hit from Conkeldurr pretty well, but it can't dish one back to it. So my idea was I'll go into Fortress and let him hit me again, and I'll get a slow Volt Switch into something like my Thundurus. And that'll help weaken this Conkeldurr. And so I do go for that Volt Switch in just a moment here. After he goes for Drain Punch, does like 20%. And I am going to switch on out into my Thundurus, as I said. Now, this was a kind of... I spent a minute thinking about this play. The real obvious play for him is to go into one of his ground types. And so I almost predicted that going for HP Ice. But he's already shown Rock Slide. So, like, he might... You know, he knows he could take one. He might just try and go for Rock Slide to try and hurt me. And I can easily take that because I have my Shardy Berry. And then on the next turn, I can feel pretty confident going for my HP Ice. Because I don't think he would let his Conkeldurr stay in to die. So my plan is T-Bolt, then HP Ice, expecting his Rock Slide. And the Rock Slide is not a threat to me because I do have the Shardy Berry. He does decide to switch on out into his Landorus, unfortunately. So I don't know if I would call that a 50-50, but unfortunately we got the prediction wrong. So again, this is a tough position for us. I don't really have anything to switch into this. But I know that if he's offensive, that I can OHKO him with Hidden Power Ice, and even if he goes for Stone Edge, I have the Shardy Berry and I can live. So even though Thundurus has the potential to really wreck him this game, I just decide to leave it in here and to basically trade it for his Landorus. So he goes for a knockoff, gets rid of my Shardy Berry. That was a good play in case I decided to switch out into something. But we do just take out that Landorus. So he did show himself to be Scarf there. And that's the same set that he brought last time. I still think something like Swords Dance with Rock Polish would have been really nice. A substitute set would have been really good. But we do find ourselves taking out that Scarf Landorus. Now he's going to go into his Zygarde. And yeah, I don't have anything that can switch into this. I could go into Fortress, but I still want to try and keep some HP on the Fortress in case I need to hit the Conkeldurr a little bit more, if I need to pivot around the Conkeldurr a little bit more. That thing with the combination of Rock Slide and Drain Punch did like 30% to me. So I want to try and keep a little bit of health on that if possible. So I just let the Zygarde, let the Zygarde take out my Thundurus. So it is what it is. And now I can easily go into Fortress. I don't know for sure that this thing is banded, but I'm betting that it is. And if it's not, there's almost no way he's going to stay in here. I guess he could go for a Hidden Power Fire or something like that, which would be cool. But I have a hunch that he is banded. So he's not going to stay in here and want to risk damage on his Zygarde for no reason, because he's seen that I have counter. Like, I had counter in our previous match, and I could have Hidden Power Ice very easily. So I'm just going to take this as an opportunity to go for my Spikes. Which again is going to be really nice for willing down things like Scizor and other stuff. He brings in the Conkeldurr. Now that I don't have Thundurus, it's kind of hard for me to deal with this. So I have to think to myself, okay, what can I bring in here just to get a little bit of chip off? Like, what's the least important member of my team? Nidoqueen's still looking pretty important because it can check Scizor, it can kind of check Conkeldurr. It has the Shuka Berry to deal with Zygarde, and unless the and depending upon the Tapu Koko set, it can take on Tapu Koko. If it's got Expert Belt, it can do like 40% max to my Nidoqueen. So Nidoqueen's too important. And Empoleon is the only thing I have that can deal with Greninja. I have nothing else on my team that can deal with that. And Empoleon's actually a decent check to Scizor as well. So I don't want to let that go down. Kyurem, I guess I could bring it in, but it can't do a whole lot to Conkeldurr. At full HP, it can tank one hit from Koko. I do have the Babiri Berry on it to help check the Scizor, so that's pretty important. So I don't want to let that go down. And the Scolipede, yeah, this Scolipede can't hit Conkeldurr, and I still want it for things like Zygarde if I can. So that means I go to Scolipede. So my late game win con is being used to wall break through this Conkeldurr, which appears to be physically defensive, by the way, just based on the amount of damage it's been taking from things like Poison Jab and stuff like that. So we weaken it. No poisons, which, you know, it is what it is. I'm not going to whine about that. And yeah, our Scolipede goes down, but this was a worthwhile trade. Like, it doesn't seem like a good trade, but this Conkeldurr is just so freaking hard for me to deal with. I don't really know what else I could have done. But yeah, here at the end, he went for a second Rock Slide instead of going for something like Mach Punch, which almost certainly would have killed Scolipede from 18%. And I don't know exactly what item this thing is. Like, it took a kind of a decent chunk of damage from Volt Switch earlier. It took 13% from Fortress, which obviously is not very strong, but that suggests that it might not actually be Assault Vest. So I do the calc and I say, okay, Kyurem with Hidden Power Fire can kill this Conkeldurr. And that way, if he decides to preserve it for some reason, I can hit the Scizor upon switch in, which would be really nice. He's not going to want to switch anything else in, pretty much. So I'm going to go into the Kyurem, and I'm going to click HP Fire and either get a kill on the Conkeldurr or potentially snipe the Scizor. But he goes for the Mach Punch, and then he actually survives the Hidden Power. So this really sucks, because now I took 35% damage on my Kyurem for no reason at all. I could have very easily won into Nidoqueen, taken less than 10% from Mach Punch, and then killed this thing with Earth Power. Earth Power hits his entire team extremely hard. So this was a huge blunder. I'm really mad. I don't know like what the heck item he is. That Volt Switch did so much versus him, but Hidden Power did so little. Like, maybe I just got a max roll or something on the Volt Switch. I don't really know. I'll have to look it up later. But this could have potentially, like, this is a potentially bad turn for me. This is potentially really bad, and we'll see how that plays into effect later in the game. But I'm not going to let my Kyurem take another Mach Punch. I am going to go into the Nidoqueen, and like I said, I take 9% from the Mach Punch, and I'm able to kill it with the Earth Power. So Nidoqueen doing some work. And he's going to go right into Zygarde, and lucky for me, I am packing the Shuka Berry. I already think this thing is Bandit. I don't think it is Yache Berry. Even if it is, I wouldn't be surprised if Zygarde dies through the Yache Berry, because it's not like it's that strong. Or sorry, it's not like it's that bulky. But anyway, Greninja comes in here, takes some nice residual damage from the hazards, and I've got an automatic play here into Empoleon. Empoleon's not really doing much else for me this game. And he does just go for the Surf, and he shows the Life Orb, which I think is the item he brought last time. I don't 100% remember. I'm still not really sure why he didn't go something like Specs, just because it obliterates my team. You know, I have no Dark Pulse switch-ins. But anyway, I'm fearing a little bit that he might go for the Low Kick, so I go for the Grass Knot just to see if he's going to stay in or not. I take 35-36% max from a 252 Low Kick, so I feel like it's probably a worthwhile trade. But he instead goes into his Tapu Koko, which is actually a decent switch in this scenario, because it's only going to do 10% to the Koko, and that's not good for me. So I am going to go back into my Sorry, I'm going to go into my fortress and sack it off because it doesn't really do much at this point. The combination of Nidoqueen and Empoleon can kind of take Scizor on. And because my Nidoqueen's kind of low, what did it take a big hit from? It took the big hit from the Zygarde. I didn't want this thing to take unnecessary damage from Koko. Like if he goes for a U-turn or anything like that, it's not worth it for me to let this Nidoqueen get any bit weaker. If he's something like Magnet and he's got Hidden Power Ice, he'll probably do about 30% to me, but if he's Expert Belt, he's got a chance to do more like 38% to me. So being at this amount of HP right here is really nice. I don't want to take any extra. So he doesn't have an Earth Power switch in on his team, so I am just going to click that. I'm really tempted to click Flamethrower here because I don't think the Koko is going to stay in. But if he's Expert Belt, there's a chance that he might just go for the roll with the HP Ice. So it's not a risk I'm willing to take. He does just go for the U-turn, gets off some chip, puts me even closer in range of Expert Belt Hidden Power Ice, which makes me pretty uncomfortable. And Scizor does not take the Earth Power particularly well. And I'm going to go into my Empoleon. And so I didn't really have another play here besides to go into Empoleon. I know that Scizor can't do a whole lot. The worst case scenario for me right here would be if he goes for U-turn. Because then he can pivot just right into Koko, and Koko can probably do a lot of damage to me. I do have the Assault Vest, so I bet I can live one, but then I just get swept by Greninja at that point, more or less. So I'm crossing my fingers and hoping he doesn't do that. Instead, he goes for the BP, which makes sense. Like, he just wants to weaken the Nidoqueen for Tapu Koko, and then Tapu Koko's got a really nice chance at cleaning up, because Thunderbolt's going to hit this Empoleon very hard. He's got Dazzling Gleam for my Kyurem. I'm thinking that that's why he made this play rather than going for U-turn. You know, and if he's like a 0-speed Scizor, my Nidoqueen is going to outspeed, so maybe that's another reason he didn't go for U-turn. But anyway, pretty lucky for me. I'm just going to go for the Scald in case he decides to switch into Tapu Koko again, because I bet Scald plus the hazards is going to put him in a pretty decent range of HP. He doesn't switch out, and his Scizor gets burned, which is definitely unfortunate. You know, it never feels good when you get burned. But he is going to stay in here and click Knockoff versus us, get rid of our Assault Vest. Not great, but we are going to be able to take it out now with the Hidden Power Fire. So now he comes into the Koko. And this is where things get a little treacherous. Because, like I was saying, if he's got Expert Belt and he's got Hidden Power Ice, he's got a good chance of just literally winning the game right here. I guess my obvious play is to go into Nidoqueen to take a Thunderbolt, but I'm worried about him making a prediction and either clicking HP Ice or just clicking U-turn to go into Greninja, and then Greninja gets a kill, more or less. So I'm looking at the two, like Greninja and Tapu Koko, and I'm like, well, Kyurem doesn't really do anything here, so rather than try and make a risky play, and have it depend on what move he clicks, I'm just gonna sack Kyurem. It doesn't outspeed. It can barely. I don't think it can take a hit from either of these guys. So I do go into the Kyurem, and lucky for me, he does go for the U-turn. Before we go to the Greninja, I will just say here, so if he is Expert Belt Koko with Dazzling Gleam, that does like 95% max to my Kyurem. So that 35% damage earlier really sucks, because I could have used this Kyurem versus the Koko. Like I could have sacked the Empoleon or something, or the Nidoqueen, and then gone into Kyurem and probably clicked Fusion Bolt twice and potentially won the game. But because of that, like, Kyurem's not in a position to do that, and that's why another reason why I'm basically sacking it here. But it works out for me because he goes into his Greninja with the U-turn, and I don't know again if he has low kick or something like that. I am a lowering special defense nature, so if he has if he has Dark Pulse or something, it should be able to kill me. It goes for Extrasensory, so I guess he doesn't even have Dark Pulse. which, you know, I guess I won't complain. You know, I don't have a single Dark Pulse resist on my team, but we'll take that. He goes into Coco, and again, Coco takes some chip damage from the hazards. Pretty nice. I'm definitely not going to be switching out here. He just goes for the Gleam and takes out my Kyurem. And now it comes down to rolls. And I'll try and pull this up real quick for you guys. I'll do Tapu Koko. I know you guys can't see the entire screen here, but you'll just have to take my word for it. Nidoqueen. Here is my Nidoqueen set. So HP Ice, this is not with Expert Belt, does 26 to 30%. This is from a Timid Max Attack Tapu Koko. Let me make this thing Expert Belt. Expert Belt does 31.3 to 37. So if he's Expert Belt, it's a roll in his favor to kill me with Hidden Power Ice. I don't know if he has Expert Belt or if he even has HP Ice, but I don't have any other play at this point. He can definitely kill Empoleon with any sort of electric move, if I can only spell it. Yeah, this is with the Assault Vest, so it would kill even with the Assault Vest. If we go without the Assault Vest, it definitely kills us. So Nidoqueen needs to survive here in order for us to win, and he just goes for the Dazzling Gleam, and that's going to be a 2-0 victory for us. So what this means is we are now 3-2, and that is going to get us into the next round. So we'll be advancing to the round of 64, and hopefully we can make some magic happen there. It was nearly a miracle that we won this match, but I'm pretty happy. You know, a lot of my sets worked out really well. I only made a few misplays, and had a lot of fun. So good game volume. I'm sorry that you won't be advancing, but it was fun to battle you a couple of times. And I hope you guys enjoyed. Since we will be advancing, there will be more GOT action next week, and definitely make sure you check that out. And make sure you check back to my channel for other gaming and Pokemon content. And until the next time, I will see you guys later.